the big news is that they made a blockbuster deal to acquire one of the NBA's most prolific scorers, the Beard himself, James Harden. Here are the notable details on a 4-team trade. Harden is heading to the Nets, while the Rockets get 4 first-round picks, 4 pick swaps from Brooklyn, and Victor Oladipo. They got Oladipo from the Pacers, while Karis LeVert is heading to Indiana. The Cavaliers acquired Jared Allen and Taurean Prince to complete the deal. Time to welcome in the man, the ultimate NBA insider who broke this story with our own Ramona Shelburne, the one and only Adrian Wojnarowski. Woj, how did this trade happen so quickly? Break this down for us.
Stephen, over the last few days, these talks started to gain some momentum, and ultimately, Brooklyn and Philadelphia were the two teams who were willing to kind of go the distance in putting packages together to try to get a player of James Harden's caliber. Those talks went through last night into this morning, and then this afternoon, really once Houston found a 4th team in the deal, Indiana, to move Karis LeVert for Victor Oladipo, there was a trade in place, and this is what Brooklyn wanted to do all along. Find a 3rd star for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. They did it. They did it at a steep price, but they've landed James Harden.
Woj, how long had this been percolating? We've been hearing about this for quite some time, that James Harden obviously wanted to end up in Brooklyn, but then we were hearing Philadelphia, and then you take into consideration Kyrie Irving and what's been going on in Brooklyn. Is this something that's been percolating over the last several weeks, or is this something that really elevated to a level of urgency once Kyrie Irving had been gone from the Brooklyn Nets over the past few games?
Well, Stephen, really since James Harden and Kevin Durant were playing pickup in the offseason in L.A., and started to talk about this idea. And Harden told the Rockets that he wanted to be traded, that Brooklyn was his focus. And he added teams in there. He was open. He was more than open to going to the Sixers. But ultimately, and I think too here in the last week for the Nets, the urgency to get James Harden, I do think was heightened by what's gone on with Kyrie Irving, because Brooklyn's already got to be thinking about Kevin Durant's future. And even though there's still 2 years left on his deal, they got to make sure Kevin Durant wants to continue his career here. He's come back at an all-world level off that Achilles injury. And getting James Harden, hopefully the Nets think to play with Kyrie and KD, but it gives them another superstar co-star for Kevin Durant, regardless of what Kyrie's future is with the Nets.
Woj, thanks, but I got bad news for you. After all the work you put in, you can't go anywhere. I need you again. I'll be back to you shortly. Don't go anywhere. Lots of stuff to still get into. Listen, it was a mix of good and bad for James Harden in Houston. He won several awards, including the 2018 MVP and 3 consecutive scoring titles. First player to do that since Kevin Durant almost a decade ago. But the Rockets did not have much success in the playoffs, despite making the postseason in every season. They only reached the conference finals twice, falling short of the finals both times. Possibly the highlight of Harden's time in Houston, though, came during the 2017-18 season when he recorded at least 30 points in 32 straight games. That is the second longest streak of all time, behind the one and only Wilt Chamberlain. However, in his last 4 games, they were the lowest in his time in Houston. Harden failed to score more than 20 points in 4 consecutive games, his longest streak as a member of the Houston Rockets. We now welcome in the wonderful Doris Burke, who will call the Nets and Knicks game tonight on ESPN. Reaction to the trade, Doris, what are your thoughts?
I had 2 very quick thoughts in succession. The first one was a championship-level team with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant enhance their championship possibilities. You don't add one of the great scorers ever in the history of the league. You just went through all the accomplishments of James Harden and not raise your window as a championship organization. It's just too dangerous on the offensive end. My second one, Stephen, was this isn't without its challenges. Number one, on the defensive end, you've got some issues. You trade away your rim protector, a guy who did a tremendous job at the rim for you, and Jared Allen. But also, Kevin Durant has proven he can play alongside another MVP in Steph Curry, an elite 2-way player in Klay Thompson, and still rise to the top of that group, 2-time Finals MVP. What we don't know, Kyrie Irving bristled alongside LeBron James when he played with him. James Harden's a guy who has had trouble getting along with Chris Paul, now Russell Westbrook. It didn't work. Those 2 guys need the ball, so how this all meshes in a compressed schedule with very little practice time remains to be seen. Is it doable? Yes, because all 3 are great players, but it's not without its challenges.
Doris, in Boston in 2008, you had Ray Allen as a third option. That was an adjustment, but he handled it. They won a title. Chris Bosh was a third option in Miami. They won 2 titles in 4 years. Of course, you had Klay Thompson in Golden State. They won 3 titles in 5 years. Who's going to be the third option in this trifecta? And more importantly, who'll be receptive to it, if anybody at all?
That's a great question. And obviously, Kevin Durant, think about what he does the other night. You're down 18. There's turmoil surrounding your entire roster. You needed a win desperately. I mean, Steve Nash said it was good for our soul. That's how the feeling was around this group with all the Kyrie uncertainty. So, you want him to shine. And again, I go back to the point, Kyrie Irving and James Harden have proven at their best they need the basketball in their hands. And even watching the brief repetitions with Kyrie and Kevin Durant, it's like one has the ball for a stretch of time and then the other has the ball for the stretch of time. The honest answer to that question is, I don't know. And it's why a collection of talent doesn't always translate to championships. How this meshes, what Steve Nash has in front of him is a unique and interesting challenge.
Always love talking to you, Doris. Thank you so much, and have a good time calling that game tonight between the Knicks and the Nets. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.